Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us from all over the world. I'm Joy, and I'd like to wish everyone a very auspicious Chökor Düchen. For today's event, we are offering Chinese, Spanish, and Portuguese interpretation. So please click the globe icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen to select your preferred language. I'll give everyone just a moment to do that. All right. Today, we're very honored to be celebrating Chökor Düchen with Chagdud Khadro. Chagdud Khadro is the spiritual director of Chagdud Gompa in Brazil. She was ordained as a Tibetan Buddhist teacher in 1997 by Chagdud Khadro, a great master of the Nyingma school. Formerly the managing editor of Padma Publishing in the United States, Khadro has edited many translations of Tibetan works. She was instrumental in the publication of Chagdud Khadro's autobiography, Lord of the Dance. She has also compiled commentaries of his teachings on the Dujom Tersa Ngondro, the Longsel Ningbo Poa, and the concise version of Abang Terden's Red Tara practice. She is overseeing the construction projects, translation, and publishing of texts in Portuguese and Spanish, and projects related to education and to death and dying. In addition to supervising the activities and teachings in all of the Chagdud Gompa Brazil centers and Chagdud Gompa Hispano-America, Khadro also teaches in Europe, in the United States, and Australia. And she is also a founding director of Middle Way Education, which is a nonprofit organization helping parents, educators, and school leaders introduce the timeless wisdom of the Dharma to students in creative and age-appropriate ways. So on this auspicious occasion of Chökor Düchen, a day that marks the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, we are very fortunate to have Khadro here to share insights on the topic of supplicating the source. Before we invite Khadro to start the teaching, let us all recite the aspiration prayer for 84,000. An aspiration prayer for 84,000. As peace, harmony, sanity, and the well-being of this earth and its inhabitants are now so endangered, may there never be a time when the world's media, school textbooks, and daily conversations stop using words like generosity, patience, and loving kindness, and when the meaning of such words is lost. As we fear the darkest hour of this dark age, may there never be a time when words like impermanence, anitya, unsatisfactoriness, dukkha, selflessness, anatman, dependent arising, praditya samutpada, illusion, maya, and emptiness, shunyata, cease to exist, and when their meaning is lost. May the endeavors of the translators and editors plant the seed of the Dharma in all directions. May the efforts of the patrons and administrators nurture and strengthen the shoot of the Dharma at all times. May the noble aspirations of this endeavor maintain and propagate the precious Dharma far and wide. This prayer was composed by Brahma Pushpa in India, June 2020. Thank you, everyone, so much for reciting the aspiration prayer together with us. Now, let us invite Khadro to begin the teachings.
Very fortunate to teach on this very auspicious day. And under the umbrella of the 84,000 Project, the teaching that I will focus on is the Sūtra of the play in full. Khyentse Rinpoche himself gave a delightful teaching on this in 2013. And when I was invited to teach, I was gently directed toward this sutra by Prema and by Pema and by John Conti. Then before I start when I entered the sphere of 84,000 this time, as most of you probably know, to read the sutras is not an easy read. And so I shut everything else down and entered a small retreat. And it was like entering a world, a realm of knowledge and wisdom. if I hadn't been directed toward this sutra, I probably would have been lost in the possibilities of so many sutras, so well translated, and with excellent introductions. And all of the apparatus, the footnotes are accessible, the cross references to different languages are in the glossary are very accessible. All of this is really marvelous. And the words, of course, of the Buddha are so reassuring that we feel like we do come to the source when we read the sutras. And for me, it was really important to read them aloud, to take the time to let the resonance of the words roll through my mind instead of fast reading as I usually do. And so I wanted to say that this project of the 84,000, it began after the Buddha's parinirvana. Almost immediately after, there was the first council. And the wishing to preserve the Buddha's words and passionately held beliefs about what were the Buddhist words. And so this has continued in different variations and in different media. Ashoka made his pillars, the palm leaf writings, the writing of the Pali Canon. All of this evolved over a long period of time. In China as well, the great Chinese travelers coming to India to bring the text back, Indians going to China to help with the translation projects. All of it's come together with a great deal of effort over these millennium. And the 84,000 has brought together this once again in the best sort of way, with masters to supervise the translations, great, awesome actually, translation teams. The website itself is a work of art. And we should never take this for granted, because we've seen fires and wars that destroy the great libraries. My own root, Gompa, Chagdud Gompa in Tibet, burned 2 years ago, 2 or 3. The losses over the centuries would be irretrievable had there not been the efforts internationally of great translators and travelers and archivists, printers. And so we have this now together with the 84,000 project. It's all together. But if we don't make it central to our own understanding, our own knowledge, if we take it for granted, if we stop our support and let it lapse, then even in a media such as the website, which seems to be analogous to mind itself in some ways, then it'll dwindle away. And so it's very auspicious to be invited to teach, and under this umbrella, with such a wealth of translators over the century, leading to this moment. Our precious human rebirth depends on the presence of these teachings, the word of the Buddha. When that word of the Buddha fades and diminishes, then human rebirth will no longer be a precious human rebirth. It's as the prayer, this aspiration prayer says, may it not diminish. May it always flourish and touch the minds of beings. And so now I want to go to the sutra itself. In the format that's provided by the 84,000, all of these sutras and publications have excellent introductions. I had stacks of books, ready to plow through, and the introductions are enough. When I have time, I want to read all of the introductions. But this Lalita Vistara Sutra, this is one of the sutras that's very beloved, and it was a kind of composite effort to bring it together. And what I found in the sutra is it's almost like a movie. It's so much cinema. It's so visual. And each of the chapters, there's actually the expansion of possibilities of the imagination is right there on the page. So in Khyentse Rinpoche's teaching, the sutra itself is the in-depth, full presentation of the drama of the Buddha's life, from the time he leaves Tushita heaven to the time when he is persuaded to teach sentient beings before he travels all over northern India, teaching for 45 years. It stops there. And the focus is on what it takes to elicit these teachings. But the chapters leading up to the life story on this earth, the Buddha's renunciation that we know of the palace in his lifetime as in our human realm, was preceded by so many renunciations, most specifically the renunciation that led him to take rebirth from the comfort and pleasures of Tushita heaven into this world system. Then there is, in Khyentse Rinpoche's teachings, he talks about how there's this decision about which father and which mother. But the sutra itself, there's a kind of blazing imagination on one hand, and on the other hand, there's this kind of coziness. When Maya, the mother, is about to tell the king that she's pregnant, and he's so happy, and he says, "Oh, what can I do for you?" And then he goes into retreat. And then when it's time to give birth, he manifests, chariots of thousands of elephants and thousands of horses. You can almost see that it's sort of like a proud father. It's like maybe there could be one or two elephants in an SUV or something, but no, there's this whole rumbling procession up to Lumbini. And then the sadness of the loss of the Buddha's mother, which had happened for the other Buddhas who took rebirth as well. Then the sections that talk about the Buddhas leaving the palace, the sections on the austerities, these are, it feels like before, we've all heard the Buddha's life, but it's almost like we were reading it in a classic comic instead of the sutra, which is so full of detail, so moving. It was what we've been told is almost like a Sunday school story as compared to a full brilliant autobiography or biography. So it talks about the attack of the Maras, and anybody who is fascinated with what was that program? Game of Thrones, the last battle, the envisioning of all of these monsters. Here in the Sutra, it's like exponentially increased. They're uglier and more increased and in multitudes, and they are totally vicious. The whole drama of the attack, and then Mara's like not giving up because he's so prideful and sure that in the end he'll win, and his humiliation, and then coming back because he still can't give up. All of this is something that's so brief in other accounts and so full here. So the section on the chapter of what the Buddha did in the 7 weeks after his enlightenment. Each week is given his travels, his mind travels. It wasn't simply a blank state. He visits different realms and has different experiences. And in the 6th week, he said something that was so poignant. He said, the world is tormented by sounds, sensations, taste, forms, and smells. Even while frightened of existence, due to craving after existence, beings continue to pursue existence. That paradox of being fearful of existence and still craving it and being bound to it. And so the chapter that's most appropriate today because of the Chökor Düchen is chapter 25 of this sutra, the exhortation. Let me open my page here. The Buddha at the end of 7 weeks is still seated, and he says, if I were to teach this truth to others, they would not understand it. Teaching the truth would tire me and be wrongly contested. It would be futile. Thus I will remain silent and keep this truth in my heart. And so his experience is in realizing the ultimate nature of mind is ineffable, and finding words for it is one problem, and finding the hearers of those words is the other problem. And so there are many, many verses. There are too many verses to go here. If I accomplish one thing, I would accomplish reading the sutra. And not only reading it, but maybe reading it aloud. I was declaiming it, the verses in my room. Very sonorous, kind of stagey voices. He said, profound, peaceful, stainless, lucid, and unconditioned. Such is the nectar-like truth I've realized. Were I to teach it, no one would understand, and so I will silently remain in the forest. I have discovered the sublimely sublime and astonishing absolute, the ineffable state, untainted by language. Suchness, the sky-like nature phenomena, completely free of discursive, conceptual movement. This meaning cannot be understood through words. Rather, it is comprehended through the reaching of their limit, the limit of words. Yet, when sentient beings who previous victorious ones took under their care hear this truth, they will develop confidence in it. And so then in that verse, there is this opening that most of those on this human earth would have no idea, no connection to his truth. Yet there are those who have the ripening from previous Buddhas. No Dharma at all exists here. That what it has no existence cannot be found. For one who knows the chain of causation and action, there is neither existence nor non-existence here. For immeasurable hundreds of thousands of eons, I have emulated the previous victorious ones, but I did not attain forbearance, in which there is no self, no sentient being, no life force. When I attain this forbearance, that nobody dies or is born here, that the nature of all these phenomena is to be without self. Then the Buddha Dipankara made a prophecy about me. I thought it was really interesting there that the translators used that word forbearance, because usually we think of forbearance as simply forbearance in the face of adversity. And here it has such a subtle meaning. Forbearance in the face of the extremes, of the forbearance in the face of concepts, refraining from entering, chasing. Those words themselves really were pivot in this sutra for me. I started looking in my own mind and see how the restraint is not there, that following the thoughts, following the sensations and so forth, instead of forbearing, waiting, looking. Anyway, with my infinite compassion for the whole world, I do not hesitate when others supplicate me. These beings all have faith in Brahma, meaning the Lord of the worldly gods. Thus, when he supplicates, I will turn the wheel of Dharma. I thought that was interesting too, because if we allow our minds to pursue worldly gods, we place our faith there, then the Buddha doesn't get into a controversy, a sort of a conflict to round up those that have faith in other systems. Instead, he goes to the very top and waits for the Lord, Brahma in this case, to bring those beings to him. And so then this is how it happened that the Buddha was prevailed upon to teach. Thinking that he sent radiance in all directions, and Brahma, being clairvoyant, was aware that he intended not to teach unless he was properly supplicated. And so there's already been a supplication in this sutra at the very beginning, when the Buddha supplicated to tell his life story. But this is a greater supplication still, because the Buddha is being supplicated to have confidence in those beings who can actually be trained and tamed by him. So then Brahma spoke these verses. Having accomplished the orb of supreme wisdom, radiating light rays throughout the 10 directions, your wisdom rays can bring lotus-like people to bloom. So why today, son of speech, do you remain indifferent? Coaxing sentient beings with the wealth of the noble ones, you could soothe many tens of millions of creatures. It is not suitable, O friend of the world, that you silently remain indifferent to the world. There is a little bit of a twist in that indifference. We don't like that. I mean, the Buddha is perfect, and Brahma is needling him a little bit with this word indifferent. Don't you care? May you open the gates to liberation. May you explain the inalienable way of Dharma. May you, O Lord, cleanse the sublime eye of Dharma for those beings who are blind from birth. So it says in the sutta, the Buddha was silently acquiesced, but then the thought arose. This truth to which I awakened is profound, subtle, luminous, hard to comprehend, inconceivable, and beyond the intellect, understood only by the clever and the wise. It is out of step with all worldly people and difficult to see. And so then inwardly, again, he decided that he would hold the teachings himself. And Brahma, knowing his thought, then went to Sakra, otherwise known as Indra, the lord of the gods, lamenting. They're kind of like worldly god Dharma brothers. Worthy one, the perfectly and complete awakened, thus gone one, is bent on not teaching the Dharma and thus keeping it to himself. Alas, this world is doomed. Alas, this world is really doomed. Alas, this world will be plunged into great darkness of ignorance. Why don't we then go and request the worthy one, the perfectly and completely awakened, thus gone one, to turn the wheel of Dharma? Because the thus gone ones do not turn the wheel of Dharma without being requested. And so at this point, it becomes very, in the sutra, again, like multitudes of worldly gods and a great array of jewels, of flowers. And it's kind of a training on how we should offer to our teachers if we can't manifest all of these jewels and flowers and fragrances and beautiful music, at least in the imagination, do it. So then they all come, and then Indra, or Sakra, supplicates him, bowing with hands folded. Your mind is completely liberated, like the full moon free of eclipse. May you rise, O victor in battle. May you shine the light of insight in this dark world. And so then there comes a kind of amusing moment, because Brahma thinks he's not doing it right. Yes. And he corrects him. This is venerable, perfectly and completely, thus gone ones are not requested to turn the wheel of Dharma in the way you requested it. So then Brahma himself tries again. He drapes his robe, he bares his shoulder, he goes down on his right knee, he bows and supplicates. May you shine the light of insight on this dark world. May beings become knowledgeable. O sage, may you teach the Dharma. And the Buddha, for a third time, refuses, but at least he answers verbally. My path going against the stream is profound. It's difficult to see, since those blinded by desire do not see it. Therefore, teaching it will not be of any help. Beings bound by their desires are continuously swept away in the stream. I discovered this with great effort. Therefore, teaching it will not be of any help. And so in the next chapter, which I also touch on, he talks about the effort he's made. This is reiterated again and again in the Sūtra, how much effort the Buddha made over how many lifetimes. And so then making the teachings available for those who've not done the austerities, those who've not had eons of renunciation, those of us who can turn on the computer and find all of these teachings in 84,000. The Buddha is still thinking whether we really will be able to transform our lives and find enlightenment by such ease after he became enlightened after such hardship. So then in the sutra, it goes on and it says, those multitudes of divinities dejected disappeared. At that time, all sorts of negative and inauspicious opinions started to circulate among the people of Magadha. This is the Buddha's homeland. Some said that the winds would no longer blow. Some said that the fires would no longer burn. Some said that the rains would no longer fall. Some that the rivers would no longer flow, and some that the crops would no longer grow. Some said the birds would no longer fly in the sky. Some said that the pregnant women would no longer give birth safely. Brahma approached the Buddha a fourth time and bared his shoulder, knelt and bowed, and made an extended, impassioned supplication in many verses. And so then the verses are really extensive, and I'll give a few here. But what's happened here? First of all, the translators seem to have a great enjoyment in making that poetic and rhyming. But what's happened here is that the Buddha is seeing the wrong view in his own homeland. So Brahma says, please have mercy on suffering beings. It's never fitting for those like you to remain indifferent. You're endowed with the fearlessness and power. Only you are able to deliver beings. Then another verse, the people suffering from thirst, O great sage, are awaiting in your presence for this water of Dharma. Like a cloud over parched earth, O guide, satiate them with the rain of Dharma. Long lost people roamed through existence, thick with wrong views and full of thorns, till the straight path, free of brambles, by which nectar is attained when meditating upon it. And so then it goes back to the narrative. Monks, the thus gone one, then looked throughout the entire world with his awakened eye and saw that sentient beings were base, mediocre, and advanced, that there were those who were high, low, and middling, those of good disposition and easy to purify, those of bad disposition and difficult to purify, those that can understand through just a cursory statement, and those for whom the words are paramount and who rely on detailed explanation for their understanding. He thus saw that sentient beings were grouped into three categories: those that were sure to be wrong, those that were sure to be corrupt, and those who were undetermined. So, monks, just as when a person standing on the bank of a lotus pond sees some lotuses submerged in the water, some lotuses at water level, some lotuses above the water, this is how the thus gone one saw sentient beings situated in three groups when he looked throughout the whole world with his awakened eye. Monks, the thus gone one thought, whether I teach the Dharma or not, this group that is sure to be wrong will not understand the Dharma. Whether I teach the Dharma or not, this group that is sure to be correct will understand the Dharma. Yet the group that is undetermined will understand the Dharma if I teach it, but will not understand the Dharma if I do not teach it. Monks, the thus gone one then engendered great compassion, starting with the sentient being situated in the undetermined group. And so then it's said that the Buddha taught 84,000 different teachings according to the different inclinations and acumen of those who heard him. And so we, I guess, are in that undetermined group, linking with those teachings now. And so then Brahma, once he had understood that the Buddha had acquiesced, he rejoiced with satisfaction and glee. Ecstatic and elated, he bowed his head to the foot of the thus gone one and vanished right there. So then now we come to chapter 26, the turning of the wheel of Dharma. I forgot to say something here. The team that translated this so beautifully and produced the introduction was the Dharma Chakra translation team. There are many teams working globally in different languages, and this is what you support. Okay, this turning of the wheel of Dharma, this is the perfect chapter for Chökor Düchen. Now the Buddha is talking to Maitreya. There's a lot of verses and exposition that goes before this. Talking about the wheel of Dharma, he says, the wheel of Dharma is profound because it cannot be grasped by the intellect. The wheel is hard to see because it's beyond duality. This wheel is hard to comprehend because it's not an object of conceptual investigation. This wheel is hard to discern because it's related to the sameness of wisdom and consciousness. It is a wheel that never reverses and continuously bestows guidance and blessings on sentient beings that are deprived of freedom. It is a wheel of entering the way of the ultimate truth, which assumes non-duality. It is a wheel that genuinely subsumes the realm of phenomena. This wheel is immeasurable because it transcends all limit. Maitreya, such is the wheel of the Dharma that the thus gone one turns. It is when the thus gone one turns the wheel that he is called a thus gone one. Then he's called a perfectly awakened Buddha, the one who naturally manifests, the Lord of Dharma, the guide, the perfect guide, the complete guide, the captain, the one with mastery over all dharmas, the Lord of Dharma. He is also called the one who turns the wheel of Dharma, the liberal provider of the gift of Dharma, Lord of the offerings, the one who grants offerings perfectly, the one who accomplishes disciplined action, the one who fulfills all aims, the teacher, the one who gives comfort, the hero, the one who abandons disturbing emotions. He is also known as the one who conquered the battle, the one who hoists the parasol, the victory flag, the banner, the one who shines, the radiant one, the one who dispels darkness, the torchbearer, the great king among physicians, the perfect healer, and the great remover of pain. So, let's see if I actually... The Buddha then considered who to teach. And he had two teachers who were great teachers, but not fully enlightened teachers who could liberate sentient beings from birth and death. And so he first considered teaching them because he knew that they would understand his words. And then he found, unfortunately, that they had both died, one with only a few days before, and one, I think, a week before. And so then, with that misfortune, then he considered the 5 yogis who had practiced with austerities with him. Let's see, just a second here. And this is important because among those 5, there was one who immediately understood his words. And by having the one who understood his words, understand his words, then we have the 3 jewels. We have the Buddha as the teacher, we have the Dharma as the teaching, and we have the Sangha that started with this one single yogi. When he approaches them, all but the one yogi really have very disrespectful thoughts because they put such value on his aesthetic accomplishments. And then when he saw those were not leading to enlightenment and abandoned them, then they thought he was weak. And this is what they thought, but he taught them anyway, for which we're very lucky. And if we've ever had a negative thought about any of our teachers, they were in a similar category as these wrong view yogis and need to purify. Wait just a second. These sutras are very easy to navigate. Someone as old and technically incompetent as I am found it wondrously easy. Okay, well, I'll just tell it from memory. The Buddha goes to, as you know, to Sarnath, to the deer park. And there's a funny little part because there's kind of an events coordinator among the gods who says, well, can't you teach in the city where lots of people can hear you? And he's very clear that he's going to teach these 5 yogis, but particularly the one yogi that he knows will understand so he can establish the Sangha. So he arrives in the deer park, and then they have disrespectful thoughts, and they don't prepare a throne, and they have an extra seat and say, you can sit in this extra seat, and they plan not to even stand up. And then he approaches, and then by the power of his realization, his enlightenment, they can't resist standing up, bowing. And the gods provide the thrones. It's this enormous cinematography of thrones and flowers. And the Buddha himself sees these 1,000 thrones that will be the 1,000 Buddhas of our fortunate eon. And he walks around the first three, the Buddhas who preceded him. He makes a circumambulation. So then he repeats the exact thoughts that those disrespectful yogis had clairvoyantly. And of course, they're mortified and confess, and so then it goes on. But this is the part that I found the most moving, because there's a long sequence of paragraphs talking about the understanding that we look for the fast path and the quick way to swift road to realization, then there is this setting forth of what the Buddha had experienced for so long. So it starts, because he is endowed with the Dharma body and the wisdom body, he is genuinely beyond all worldly concerns. He is called the great tree because he blossoms with precious wisdom of limitless qualities and is endowed with the fruits of liberation. He is called the one who is like the Udambara flower because it's so rare for him to appear and be seen. He is like the king of gems, the wish-fulfilling jewel, because he's genuinely fulfilled his aim of attaining nirvana according to the way. For so long, he has practiced renunciation, discipline, hardship, and religious practices in a firm and pure manner, without wavering or getting weary, and therefore he is known as the one with firmly planted feet. For so long, parents, monks, priests, spiritual teachers, worthy people, and religious people have been protected and defended by him, and those who have taken refuge in him have never abandoned. And so therefore he's said to have the soles of his feet marked with the various swastikas, auspicious symbols, and 1,000-spoked wheels. For so long he has abandoned killing, and therefore he is the one with broad heels. For so long he has inspired others to abandon killing living beings, and so he is the one with long fingers. For so long he has explained the benefits of desisting from killing, so he is called the protector of many people. For so long he has exerted himself in preparing his own lands and his own body by rubbing them with ghee and sesame oil, and then using his hands for bathing and anointing the bodies of parents, monks, priests, spiritual teachers, and worthy people as a part of his devoted service to him, so that he is the one with the soft and smooth hands and feet. For so long, with the net of four means of attracting disciples: generosity, kind talk, meaningful actions, and practicing what one preaches, he has skillfully trained the multitudes of beings. So he is the one with webbed fingers and toes. For so long, he has been acquiring increasingly superior roots of virtue. So he is the one with arched feet. For so long, he has circumambulated parents, monks, priests, spiritual teachers, worthy people, and memorials with relics of the dust-gone ones, respectfully listened to the Dharma, painted images, had his hair stand on end, and caused the same rapture in others by teaching the Dharma. So he is called the one who has the hair on his head curling to the right. For so long, with the great skill, he has paid respect and listened to the Dharma, understood it, memorized it, recited it, caused others to understand it, ascertained the meaning and the words, and with a mind of humility offered refuge to beings faced with old age, sickness, and death, and respectfully explained the Dharma to them. So he's the one with the shanks like an antelope. For so long, he has steadfastly applied himself to praising the religious life of monks, priests, and other religious practitioners, giving them all the necessary supplies. He has given clothing to the naked and never approached another man's woman. He has explained the virtues of spiritual practice and persevered in his self-dignity, and therefore he is the one who has his private parts well sheathed. For so long, the loving actions of his body, speech, and mind have been directed toward not harming living beings by means of guarding his arms and legs. Therefore, he is the one with long hands. For so long, he has known the right measure in eating and has only eaten a little in a restricted manner. He has given medicine to those weakened by the travails of self-control, never despised the poor, the base, never oppressed those who are without a protector, repaired the broken memorials of the thus gone ones, built memorials and removed fear from those plagued by anxiety. Therefore, he is the one with the proportions of a perfect circle, like the Nagrodha tree. For so long, he has served parents, priests, monks, spiritual teachers, and worthy ones by washing them, anointing them, massaging them with oils. When it was cold, he used hot water in the sun, and when it was hot, he used cool water in the shade, offering them the comforts depending on the seasons of the year. He has given them beds and seats covered with soft and pleasant cloth, and to the memorials of thus gone ones, he has offered fragrant oils, banners of delicate cloth, flags, and threads of silk. Therefore, he is the one with smooth and fine skin. For so long, he has never rejected any sentient being, and instead he is delighted in practicing love and patience by inspiring others to do the same by praising the good qualities of forgiveness and altruism. To the memorials of the thus gone ones and the statues of the thus gone ones, he's offered golden ornaments, golden flowers, gold dust, and silken banners in golden color. He's also offered ornaments, golden vessels, and golden garments. Therefore, he is the one with the skin like gold. For so long, he has attended scholars and clarified what is virtue and what is not. He's inquired about what is objectionable and what is not, what is to be practiced and what is not, which dharmas are bad, which mediocre, and which sublime. He has examined the meaning, evaluated it, and gained full certainty. He has cleaned away insects, spiderwebs, faded flower, various weeds and sand from memorials of the thus gone ones. Therefore, he is the one with untangled hair. For so long, he has showed respect to parents, leaders, elders, holy people, monks, priests, beggars, destitute beings, and many others who have come to him, satisfying their wishes by providing them with food, drinks, bedding, medicine, clothes, homes, lamps, and all the manufactured necessities of life, plus wells, the lotus ponds filled with cool water. Therefore, he is the one with the 7 perturbances. For so long, he has shown respect to parents, monks, priests, spiritual teachers, and worthy ones, addressing them while bowing and prostrating, and protecting them from danger. He has never shown disrespect to the weak, never forsaken those seeking refuge. He has never abandoned his firm resolve. For this reason, he's known with the one with a torso like a lion. For so long, he has recognized his own faults and never pointed out the faults of others who have stumbled. He has relinquished the cause of debate and is not engaged in divulging secrets that cause discord among others. In this way, he has carefully guarded his speech, actions, and mind. And so he is the one with broad shoulders. For so long, he has shown respect to parents, monks, priests, spiritual teachers, and worthy ones by rising for them, welcoming them, and addressing them honestly. Because he is an expert in the entire ceremonial, commentario literature. He has been able to restrain beings in their desire to argue, and instead has promoted his own Dharma precepts in a tactful way. He has established others, such as well-intentioned kings and ministers, on the path of Dharma, which has duly furthered the cause of virtue. In this way is upheld the totality of the teachings of the thus gone ones perfectly, and inspired others to practice in every virtue. For this reason, he's called the one with round shoulders. That verse particularly, it reminded me of 84,000, because there are different sects of Buddhism and different countries collaborating on this to produce a great harmony of the Buddha's intention, and to lie down the divisiveness of sectarianism. For so long, he has given up all possessions and addressed beggars by pleasant names, whichever they may like to hear. Whenever they have approached, he has never felt contempt for them, disappointed them, or turned them away. Dearly fulfilling their wishes, he has never wavered in his firm resolve to give up his wealth. For this reason, he is known as the one with the lion's jaw. For so long, he has totally given up divisive talk and does not accept the advice that might lead to dispute, shining with the complete harmony of concord. He has criticized divisive talk and praised the qualities of getting along in complete harmony. Therefore, he is called the one with 47 even teeth. For so long, he has abandoned evil ways and adopted the virtue of goodness. He has avoided bad actions in their maturation and praised good action in their maturation. He has made offerings of white cloth and food mixed with milk, and he has painted the memorials of the thus gone ones with whitewash mixed with milk, while offering them various white flowers and garlands of sumana, varsiki, and Danusk curry. Somebody can follow up with the Sanskrit flowers. Therefore, he is the one with the pure white teeth. For so long, he has given up laughing and mocking others. Instead, he has made everyone happy, guarded his words, and spoken in a way that made others happy, never looking for shortcomings and mistakes in others. He has been striving to make everyone get along. He has never wavered in his firm resolve to teach the same Dharma to everyone. Therefore, he is the one with teeth without a gap. For so long, he has never harmed or hurt anyone. Instead, he's nursed those stricken by disease and given medicine to the sick. He is never tired, giving all kinds of elixir to those who needed them. Therefore, he is called the possessor of a universal elixir of elixirs. For so long, he has never lied or spoken harsh words, nor has he been rude or dishonest, nor sought to humiliate others, nor has he been unpleasant or attacked others' weak points. Instead, he's practiced love and compassion and applied himself to making others feel happy and fulfilled. With sympathetic joy, he has spoken words that cause happiness, loving, pleasant, soft words that have touched others, satisfied them, and refreshed their senses. In this way, he has applied himself to proper talk, and therefore, he's the one with the voice of Brahma. For so long, he has regarded sentient beings as with his unhindered vision, as his mothers, fathers, and children, looking at beggars as if they were his only children. He is filled with love and compassion and never disappointed with them. With his senses still, he looked at the memorials of the thus gone ones. With unblinking eyes, he made firm resolve to inspire other beings to meet the thus gone one, and therefore he is the one with deep blue eyes. For so long, he has given up unintelligible unintelligent and lowly attitude, and instead has applied himself perfectly to the lofty and vast. He has inspired beings with a feeling of delight for the Dharma. He has never frowned at others, but always shown a smiling face. He has sought the presence of all spiritual teachers, and being so predisposed, he has transformed himself into a collection of everything auspicious. Therefore, he is said to have the eyelashes like a cow. For so long, he has given up all faults of speech. Instead, he has expounded elaborately on the virtue of the listeners, the solitary Buddhas, and those who teach Dharma. He has copied the sutras of the thus gone ones, read them, recited them, and explained them to others. Regarding the teachings contained in him, he has been able to differentiate between the words and the meaning, and has been skilled in making others understand the same. Therefore, he is the one with the well-developed tongue. For so long he has venerated parents, monks, priests, spiritual teachers, and worthy ones by putting his head to their feet. He has praised those who have gone forth and greeted them respectfully, shaved their hair, anointing their heads with scented oils. To all beggars he has offered colored powders, chaplets, and garlands with head ornaments. Therefore, he is called the one with the crown extension, the top whose crown cannot be seen. So the last verse. For so long, he has encouraged others to make liberal offerings of all sorts and admonished them to follow the teachings of all spiritual friends, and trusted by those who teach the Dharma. He has gone in all directions without feeling weary in order to serve the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, the solitary Buddhas, the noble listeners, Dharma teachers, parents, teachers, and all worthy ones. He has offered them lamps with scented oils of many kinds, and lights and lamps made of oil, ghee, and grass that dispel darkness. He has beautified the statues of the thus gone ones with the most exquisite, pleasing things, and adorned them with heaps of milky white jewels. Because he has made others develop the mind of awakening, his accumulation of virtue has been exceptional. Therefore, he is known as the one with a beautiful glowing tuft of hair between the eyebrows that curls clockwise and has an exquisite color. And so those are the explanations of the Buddha's marks, special marks, 32 marks. And then the Buddha himself spoke these verses. The wheel of Dharma has been turned, which is profound, hard to behold, and subtle. It is not understood by the extremists, nor by demons. The wheel of Dharma has been turned, which is without an all ground and beyond concepts, unborn and without origination, unique and empty of inherent nature. The Buddha has turned the wheel that teaches the Dharma of equality without anything to accept and reject, causeless and without characteristics. The protector of the world has turned the wheel that is like an illusion, a mirage, a dream, an echo, or a moon reflected in water. It leads beyond conditioned phenomena. It is not nihilistic, neither is it permanent, but cuts through all views. So is the wheel of Dharma described. This brief explanation will set in motion the wheel of Dharma. This praise of the qualities of the thus gone one has listed just but a few. For the limitless wisdom of the Buddha is vast as the sky. If one were to speak for an eon, it would not suffice to describe the Buddha's qualities. And so in the colophon it says, whoever hears this teaching and puts it into practice shall not only be an unsurpassable guide of humans, but a being without equal, inexhaustible, like the ocean. And so I want to quote the one of the translators of this into Spanish, Ayana, who works with Chagdud. I asked her what it was like to translate this into Spanish. She translated it from the very beautiful English of Dharma Chakra team. She said, I must confess that during all the time I spent translating the sutra, I could feel in every line the living, vibrant, and deeply human presence of that exceptional being that is Shakyamuni. At no time did I feel distant. It was like sitting at his feet and listening firsthand to his exemplary story. But not only this, while enveloping us and placing us inside Shakyamuni's personal story, the sutra does not fail to tell us that it is a play and we are being spectators of it. It is fantastic how it manages to make us identify with his life, but at the same time leads us to see it as a staging. The relative and absolute truths are present there without any theorization, without it seeming like a teaching. And perhaps that's why it touched me so deeply. Every phrase, every verse, every word transformed my life. I hope that all those who are able to read the sutra in its magnificent English version or in the Spanish one can feel equally transformed as I feel. So then we have debts of gratitude to Brahma and Indra and all the gods who provided the thrones and the flowers and the jewels, and the request into the Buddha himself, who bestowed the teachings that make our rebirth precious, and to the translators and the editors and the website managers and the event producers, and all of this great confluence that goes back to the time of the Buddha himself, and in the Buddha's service to those previous three Buddhas described in So Long Had I. This debt of gratitude becomes immeasurable. Have I taken up all the time, or is there time for questions?
Thank you so much, Khandrila. There is time for questions. We have about 20 minutes. So thank you so much for sharing with us those two specific chapters from the Play and Fold that are so relevant to our occasion today. And I thought that I would start off first with a question. So you've shared with us at the beginning about how projects like 84,000 and other translation projects are making so many of the Buddha's teachings accessible, right? So that now it's just at the click of a fingertip. So then my question is, how do we remember to actually not take the teachings for granted? And for us in our time now, what is the equivalent of supplicating the Buddha? Because I think from the Play in Full, it becomes very clear that supplication is in fact a very important practice as well, to ask for the teachings. So even though we have all of the Buddha's teachings in text form today, what is our version? How can we continue to make the supplication for the teachings?
Well, we have many of the Buddhist teachings, but the 84,000 project, as you know, has many more pages and needs support. So in that we have the example of those who offered to the Buddha to request the teaching, so he can offer for the teachings. That's one thing. And then I suggest, actually, because we're so maybe you're not, but I am so habituated to reading fast and superficially, to make a retreat, to go into a retreat for just maybe 3 days and wander around in the realm of the 84,000, like touching on the introductions, reading the introductions, reading. Now we have the team has, I think it's Pimakara, has produced the 25,000 lines. I mean, this is a monumental effort. It takes so much diligence and intelligence to go in and like read it and maybe read it aloud. It helps to read it aloud. These sutras were originally, many of them, meant for hearing. The sutras are more of a narrative than, say, the Pali Canon, but still, the narrative is there. So it's, you can read it to your roommate, read it to your partner, read it to yourself, and really appreciate it. But I myself want to make offerings to the translation. It's really clear that this work is necessary, and the conditions to have it, to have the masters. I mean, we've just lost great masters. We have a little page of long life, and it's such a sad moment to pick out a page and then put it in the back, because that long life will no longer be said. And so then, as long as there are these masters of a well-trained generation to oversee these translations, then we need to support the translators working under them, and the archivists, and all the rest of it.
Thank you. And in the chapter that you shared with us, where Brahma and all the gods are exhorting the Buddha to teach, it seems like eventually the Buddha acquiesces and teaches out of compassion eventually, even though he thinks that most beings won't be able to understand what he's actually realized. But in the end, he sort of, at Brahma's exhortation, takes pity, teaches out of compassion. So how do you think we can actually make ourselves better receptacles for the teaching? What are things we can do so that maybe teachers are more likely to want to teach us? How can we make ourselves better receptacles?
Well, the Buddha was never not going to teach. It's one of the 12 acts of a Buddha to teach. I think that drama, that part of the drama, is for the Buddha to show that to understand the transmission completely, we have to understand what's ineffable. And at the same time, the path to that understanding, that awakening, is compassion. And so then, in the short time I had to prepare for this teaching, you find so many arguments out there, like pulling apart, instilling doubt. And that was the Mara's last weapon, is trying to instill doubt. And so how do we find that certainty? Again, it's like listening to the teachings and knowing that how they fall in the mind at one stage of our path will not be the same way that they fall in our mind and unfold at another stage. We read the Heart Sutra, every time we read it, it's a different person reading it, if our path is unfolding. And so we get lost in the intellect, or not in the intellect itself, because obviously the 84,000 project is making use of gigantic intellects. But if we misuse the intellect and direct it into divisiveness and argumentation, then we put a lid on the receptacle. But if we open and look at our minds and have confidence in our teachers, then the promise is there. I mean, the path of enlightenment, to really knowing the nature of mind, ultimately is there.
Thank you. We have a question from Sibel Defoon. I don't know if I'm saying the name correctly. Apologies for that. And if I understand the question correctly, the question is that, all of us are at different levels of understanding in terms of what the Buddha taught and in terms of our understanding of love and compassion. But the questions are, can we leave behind what Sibel is calling the ancient Catholic influence? Because do we have to suffer to reach enlightenment? Must one lose an arm, a leg, a home, a loved one to know and to understand that you shouldn't bring harm unto others? Shouldn't we say that it's better to make the Dharma easy and available? So that's sort of the group of questions that Sibel has asked. Is it still necessary to sort of make these huge sacrifices that we see in some of these old texts?
Oh, that's interesting. One place in this sutra, which teaches on a lot of different levels. I mean, in one way it's like a big movie, in another way it's very subtle. The one place in the sutra, the Buddha says every concept leads to suffering. He's outlining the 12 links. And so then, on a very subtle level, we can train the mind toward freedom, but we all have created so many causes and conditions that we're going to experience now, that it's not exactly necessary that we suffer, but it's likely that we will anyway, because this degenerate age is an age of increasing suffering. And if we suffer with the intention that by my suffering may others not suffer, then the purification is profound. So the word necessary isn't, we can be proactive in our purification, but the willingness to suffer for others, the Buddha did that for countless eons. That's necessary.
Thank you so much. We also have a question from Rafael Adada, who's writing from Brazil. And they ask, how, when reading the teachings of the Buddha, how do we read in such a way that we read correctly, we read rightly, so that we're not making personal interpretations that somehow distort the Buddha's teaching?
Well, I think when we read the words of the Buddha, that we should be aware of how they affect our mind. What vectors are they setting up? Are they setting up the vectors of greater altruism and expansiveness? But many of the teachings we need clarification from our own teachers. And so then supplicating your teachers to clarify, I think, is helpful.
Yes. Kandrila, maybe we'll take one last question and then conclude. We have one question from Sergio Candido, who is asking about the way to approach sutras, because in the Play in Full, for example, the realizations of the Buddha Shakyamuni are described as being so perfect. They're so perfect, and that makes the Dharma seem very far away sometimes. in its perfection. So how do we read the sutras without feeling like it's taking us away from the Dharma because the Buddha is so perfect and so far away from us?
I think we cut the concept of near and far, and we read the perfection of the Buddha with aspiration that we likewise will have this kind of capability to manifest and inspire others.
Mm. Thank you so much.
Is that enough? Or you want more?
Perhaps that is enough. But perhaps then we'll take one more
Yeah,
question,
I
if
don't
that's
think
okay with you.
there is this, like great. In a lot of the sutras, in the main sutras I read in the past, or the Amitabha Sutra, the Kshobhya Sutra, they likewise have all of this imagination. It's not imagination, though. We don't know the limits of mind. It's a lens that we put on. And then by having confidence in the perfection of the Buddha, then we can follow the Bodhisattva path.
Yes. Yes, and then now a final question that I think is related to this point about imagination. Eugene Lau asks, why is this sutra named The Play in Full? Khandrula, you briefly touched on this, but what is the significance of this title? Is there irony in it? Is there lightheartedness? Why is the sutra called The Play in Full?
Because on a relative level, and including the great expanse of and mind limit level of thousands of elephants and heaps of jewel, all of that, on that level, we understand it. And on the ultimate level, we know that it really is an illusion, that we're an illusion, it's an illusion. We can't say that the relative truth is this narrow relative truth of the rooms we're sitting in. It can be like that expansive relative truth, but the ultimate truth is that there's no inherent existence. So then it all unfolds for our benefit.
Mm.
And it
Thank you
has this
so
kind
much.
of dramatic, looking, the curtains open.
Yes, thank you so much. And as you said just now as well, it sort of makes us spectators of this dramatic telling of the Buddha's life story as well.
Yeah, I just don't want to
Thank
say
you.
that it's just imagination, because we
Mhm.
don't know the limits of mind.
That's right. Thank you so much, Khandrula. And with that last question, I think we will bring our event today to a close. Khandrula, thank you so much for taking this time on this auspicious day to share your wisdom with us. May we all endeavor to supplicate the source as you've taught us, to read the sutras more slowly, more involvedly. So thank you, and thank you to everyone for joining us today as well. Please stay tuned for more 84,000 events that we'll be organizing for the remaining 210 days this year. And to stay up to date with the latest news and updates, please sign up for the 84,000 newsletter. Thank you again to Khandrula. Thank you to everyone for participating today. Happy Chökor Düchen, and see you all next time. Thank you so much.